Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our Alumni AMA. We're so excited to have you join us today. We're going to get started in just about 4 minutes. So I just wanted to introduce everyone and let everybody know that we'll be starting soon. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Sierra. She'll get us started in just a few minutes, so hang tight.
All right. Hi, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. If you're a panelist, feel free to turn your camera on now and unmute yourself. We will go ahead and kick off. If you are joining us, welcome.
We can't turn our cameras on.
No, well,
I have to make you guys co-hosts, so hold tight.
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Yep. You should be a co-host now. Let me know if you can start your video.
Yeah, now it works for me.
Okay.
cool. Now I can see your face.
I'm still clicking in.
Yep, still trying.
I don't know, Nikki, if you're still here, if you can help us get their camera started. I've made them co-host.
Looks like it's just Matt and Kevin that are having issues.
Sometimes we just have technical issues and I see everyone's
Oh, Wilson, it looks like you are the host. If you could pass those privileges back to me, then I will move everybody else over.
I've got it handled. Don't worry about it. I'll get you handled.
Okay, guys, while we are sorting out the technical issues, I'll go ahead and just introduce myself. Hi, welcome. My name is Erica Underwood, and I am the program director at the Data Incubator. Many of you probably know what we do, but if in case you don't, we are a fellowship, scholarship, and placement company. And we have an awesome AMA, and if you don't know what that stands for, it means Ask Me Anything panel with some of our alumni today. These alumni are from various cohorts, various locations, and have various experience with our program. So hopefully we'll get a lot of information from them. A little breakdown of what you can expect for the first 40 minutes or so. Sierra and I will be asking them questions, kind of picking their brain about their experience at TDI, what are they currently doing, all of that good stuff. And then after that, we'll open it up to your guys' questions. So if you guys have any questions for the panelists, make sure you're putting them in the Q&A section. And that is where we will go to at the end and answer those and pass those off to the panelists to answer. So we are recording this session. So if you want a recording afterwards, you don't have to worry about it. We will automatically send you a recording. But if you have any questions throughout this panel, you can always reach us at admissions@thedataincubator.com. So before we introduce our panelists, Sierra, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Celia King. I'm the Admissions and Program Services Manager at the Data Incubator. Super excited to host this panel here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, panelists, for joining us. Me and Sierra are going to introduce you guys, and then we'll go ahead and kick off with some questions. So first up, I'm going to introduce Celia Chin. She is honestly a dear friend, a wonderful alumni of ours. She went through the winter 2017 cohort, and she is a staff data scientist at Walmart Global Tech. She's currently leading a team of data scientists to work on inventory accuracy, shelf availability, data science solutions to power Walmart stores. Prior to joining Walmart Lab, she was a data scientist at Alliance & Bernstein, which is a global investment management firm. She worked with multiple teams on building machine learning modules, leveraging data science techniques like natural language processing, to gain business insights and integrate alternative data sets to make better and faster investment decisions. And after completing her master's in quantitative methods with data science focused at Columbia, she joined the Data Incubator, and that's how she ended up here. So welcome, Celia.
Awesome, and I'm going to introduce Matt Chan. Matt Chan was part of our East Coast Data Science cohort in summer of 2020. He currently works with the Analytics and Experimentation Data Science team as a data scientist for big data at Comcast. While at TDI, his project was a dashboard that visualized foreign donations received by US universities over the years. Other projects he's built on his own between pivoting to a data science career and landing his first job include a web app that makes music files uploaded by users and passing that through a neural network that generates string quartet arrangement PDF sheet music. And in his past career, he worked at a university as a research faculty and administrator, managing 2 research and education centers as an associate director. And he was responsible for recruitment, scientific outreach, and professional development. And he studied environmental engineering and chemistry and conducted research on the environmental implication of nanotechnology. So welcome back, Matt. We are super happy to have you here today.
Great. And I'm going to introduce Kevin Lynn. He participated in our fall 2017 cohort in San Francisco. And he is a senior software engineer at Upstart Network. He currently works on a cross-functional team developing model infrastructure, monitoring deployments, and improving platforms for research scientists to develop and train new models. And his true multiple hats fashion, he has also contributed up and down to the tech spectrum from model research to back-end web development. Prior to joining Upstart, Kevin completed the Data Incubator Fellowship in New York, which he credits for bridging the gap between his math PhD and economics bachelor's degree to the world of tech and data. So welcome, Kevin.
Thanks. Good seeing you again, Erica.
So good to see you.
And last but not least, I will introduce Wilson. Wilson currently works as a data scientist for Booz Allen Hamilton for the past 2 years and counting, and where he supports internal strategic initiatives and builds relationships with government clients under the defense and healthcare sectors. Previously, he worked under contract with Morgan Stanley under the fixed income division for a year, and he received his Master's of Science in Analytics at Georgia Tech and a Master's of Science in Mathematics at the University of South Carolina. So welcome back, Wilson. We are also happy to have you here as well.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I think our audience is going to be blown away by the wisdom you are about to impart on all of them. But I'd love to start off, and I would like to have everybody kind of answer this. Obviously, we just read your bios, but can you tell us a little bit more in depth about where you're working and what you're currently doing in your role today? Whoever wants to start can start. I don't know if somebody wants to go first.
Sure. I guess no one else is putting up their hands. Yeah. So like Erica said, I'm Kevin. I'm currently working at Upstart Network, which is a recently IPO'd actually fintech. So main product that we've generally been known for is AI-driven personal loans, which uses machine learning and just a variety of data sources in order to give people better rates on personal loans that otherwise they might either not qualify for or maybe have to even resort to paydays or things like that. Recently, we've been branching into the space of auto loans as well and auto refinance. And I initially joined the team as a generalist data scientist. So I did model research, model development for both, actually mostly for our credit model to begin with. And then about a year and a half in, I asked to only do model infrastructure because I turned out I liked the engineering side more. And they said yes, and before you know it, I was on the new model infra team, which we created about 2 years after I joined. Since then, I got to actually do some straight up web development as well, but mostly specialize in taking models that others have developed and trained now and getting them to work well with the rest of our site and our services.
Awesome. Kevin, how long have you been at Upstart?
So 3 years and a half, which is an eternity for Silicon Valley.
That is impressive. Does anybody else want to talk a little bit about what they're currently working on?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about my experience. I actually only started beginning of this year, so it's been about 4 months, and then again I did the fellowship last summer. And so mostly Comcast, I work for the part of the company that is mostly concerned with their video product. So a lot of streaming and, what you would watch on either your mobile device or your smart TV and computer, laptop, stuff like that. So not the ISP part. So don't come complain to me about your internet. But as you can imagine, because of just the amount of reach the company has, it's just a huge company. There's a lot of data that comes in, and a lot of times, I work with other folks in the company who are interested into looking into maybe, for example, their streaming device, kind of like a Comcast version of a Roku. What its user interface. Maybe they're rolling something new out and they want to kind of model and predict whether or not this new feature, this new interface feature would, how it might affect the usage. Would it make people more likely to watch more of the programs, stuff like that. The data volume is huge. We're talking about, just text-based logs, but terabytes of it, like, tens of terabytes of it. And it's really difficult to wrap your head around how much data it is. So you do have to use a lot of very specialized tools, even within data science, to deal with stuff like that. So when I was in TDI, there was 1 week where we built specifically for stuff like that, when you will learn a lot about Spark. So unless they change the curriculum there, you will have some exposure to Spark, which is very helpful. But other than that, I do a lot of other stuff. I think Kevin mentioned a little bit about development. We do develop our own data science Python package for internal use. So there's a good amount of that. You often have to come up with good presentations, not necessarily just, slides or anything like that for clients, internal clients. So, maybe you'll build a website, some really simple website to present your result. So there's that as well, which I really like, because you kind of get a variety of, experience, and you learn to do a lot of different things, not just solely, data science and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you. I will make note that we should not call you when our cable drops. So, Celia or Wilson, do you guys want to talk about what you guys are working on?
Yeah, sure. I can just probably go first. So I'm Celia. I'm a staff data scientist in Walmart Global Technology. So I've been with Walmart for 2 years now. I've been the team. It's actually called Store Associate Tech. So, Walmart, we have e-commerce. We also have the store. So our project is mainly fall under the in-store domain. So if you go to the Walmart, we have over 4,800 stores only in the, just if we're only talking about the US, you will see a lot of associate there. They have a handheld device, help them to conduct their daily activity. So we are the team who's developing all the data science algorithms behind the scene to help them manage their day, direct their work, make sure that we have all the better shelf availability, very accurate inventory, things, etc. So I currently have been leading a team to do a lot of these different work. But I'm still hands-on doing some of the projects myself, but sort of already started transforming into the manager role, started working with some of the data scientists on my day-to-day work. That's pretty much about my current role. The job right after TDI I got is actually from AllianceBernstein, which is an investment firm. So we also did a lot of the data science projects there related to the investment problems.
Awesome. Thank you, Celia. Wilson, share a little bit about where you're at right now.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So as Sierra mentioned, I currently work as a data scientist at Booz Allen Hamilton. As many know, Booz Allen Hamilton is a government contracting firm, which essentially have been making a recent push towards trying to address a lot of data challenges that most clients face. And the verticals that we typically target are defense, healthcare, and then civilians as well. So a lot of the projects that I have been involved with has been fairly desperate in the sense of, you're not necessarily doing modeling focused or engineering focused. It highly varies on what the demands of the clients are. So specifically what I've done so far, this is within 2 years of my tenure at Booz Allen. I've built out a data infrastructure to help support ingestion of very large data sets, healthcare data sets that contains personal identifiable information. So there has to be some strategy that has to be assigned, or that has to be accounted for when building out this architecture. So I learned a little bit of that. And then most recently, I've been working on building out an optimization model to help a government client accurately disperse finances across multiple work centers and installations. And then there's also a strategic effort where Booz Allen pretty much develop a lot of these AI-driven products to ideally sell for the clients. And so most recently, I've been involved with building out a data infrastructure supporting ingestion of geospatial data sets. And previously, I've also worked on building out a DevOps, a reinforcement learning focused DevOps architecture that allows for reinforcement learning training, which as I don't know if reinforcement learning is covered, but it involves a kind of a different sort of logical cycle to making sure that the DevOps cycle is well aligned to that. But pretty much, as you can see, there's a lot of many projects that really challenges you with different areas of data science. So I think this is what I particularly like a lot about my current role.
Awesome. It sounds like you all have kind of wear many hats, I think is one of your bios said, and work on many different data projects, which I think is probably cool and also very overwhelming and stimulating all at the same time.
So the next question we have for the group, and I think a lot of our students that are in this session now are wondering, is what made you decide to join the Data Incubator program? And that is to all panelists. So if anyone wants to jump in first.
I suppose I can start with this one since I went last on the previous one. So previous to my data science career, I built out a career in sort of like academia and teaching and education. But one of the primary motivators of me wanting to pursue data science was trying to observe and build out, using my mathematical skills, trying to build out value for a lot of the bigger problems that we face today in the industry. And I'm the type of person that's sort of results oriented in the sense that I'd like to see how, you know, taking some complex problem and translating that mathematically, that's something that really intrigues me. So specifically with the Data Incubator, I have full trust that the Data Incubator provides me the necessary curriculum to allow me to have all the foundations necessary to become successful in achieving that goal. And in fact, after graduating from the Data Incubator, this was spring 2017 for myself, I saw that I learned quite a bit more beyond just the mathematics itself. I've learned a lot about the technical stacks, and I've learned a lot about pretty much trying to target the value of the business by conveying a lot of these complex ideas.
Wilson, I think we lost your audio.
I definitely was, I wouldn't say overqualified, but I definitely would say that I had a pretty good skill set that that I can easily contribute to a lot of projects from start. So it definitely prepped me very well with being onboarded onto my first industry job in data science.
Awesome. Would anyone else like to jump in with this question?
Yeah, I think I also can chime in on this question. I think the Data Incubator is the perfect fill-in between the gap of, you know, if you're doing any programs in school to learn any data science, like machine learning, those typical courses you would take at school to become a data scientist, and to the reality job of a data scientist. Because I feel, at least when I was in school, there are a lot of courses about machine learning. Even when I was in school, actually, we did everything in R, which is not the most popular like the language is using actually in the industry anymore. At the same time, I don't think in the school we ever deal with like PySpark or anything actually I am constantly using daily in my current job. And I learned all of those actually from the Data Incubator. It's literally because of this program, I feel I can literally hit the ground and running on my day one in the real job. And especially now, sort of, I become a manager, I'm like recruiting people from school. And I really wish they have went through the Data Incubator, because you literally can see it takes them a couple months to get to fill that gap between the school and then to a real job as a data scientist. So I think it's very practical, just perfectly customized for a real world data scientist.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, I can add that. my background is completely not data sciencey. Like I was a chemist, and I mean, the most amount of data I did was like, maybe like a couple graphs in Excel or something to that effect. So I think I answered the question on the Q&A section where it was that I had to do, in fact, a good amount of preparation even before TDI, the fellowship, because, and it was fortuitous that I did that because it is quite a lot of things in a short amount of time. And if you kind of just went in without, I mean, you probably wouldn't be able to get in, but I think it definitely helped that I did a lot of studying on my own. But now that I have been through all of that and now I'm working as a data scientist, it's just, there's so much you need to kind of be able to show employers that you are able to deliver in order to kind of have them even consider you. And I think being in TDI where you're forced to, or you're required to at least kind of build a tangible project that can showcase your ability, that really helps. That really is something that can tremendously help you get to the point where you can maybe get a job. So that was really a huge part of my decision.
Awesome.
Okay, so I guess I went first last time, so fitting that I go last this one.
We'll just keep reversing the order back and forth.
Just keep doing it, scramble it, yeah. So like Matt said, at the end of the day, one of the biggest, I feel like going into TDI, probably the main thing I was looking for was, I only had an academic background. I was raised by parents who are academics. I knew literally like nothing about industry, aside from maybe little tidbits from a few friends I had in college. So the big thing is just like, I just need a foot in the door, man. Like I just need something to boost my resume so I'm not just someone else with no experience. So probably that was what I was thinking going into TDI the most. After doing the fellowship, I would say that besides the foot in the door, one of the biggest gains you get outside of just studying on your own or taking MOOCs or doing other things, which like Matt said, really do help you prepare for the fellowship, is you also get a feeling of what it's like working in the tech industry, surprisingly. So I would say that when you're doing the mini projects, when you're doing your capstone, when you're collaborating with your fellows, it really mirrors the work environment. And I think there's some like intangible gain you really get from that not only do you, are you doing tech work effectively? Are you actually doing data science work? But you feel like I'm doing data science work. I can really do this. If I can do it here, why can't I do it at the job I go to? And I think that's even the psychological gain from that, I think is huge.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to know. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Kevin, that sometimes you just need that confidence that you've done it before to be able to, ace that job interview or have the confidence to even apply to a role like that, right?
Definitely. When I started out, I was really nervous, and it's actually weird. Like when I started out, I was sending out a lot of letters and not getting a lot of hits. And then toward the end of the fellowship, they all start coming in at once. And at one point I was just like, even if there's an offer from a company, I wasn't scared. It's like, I don't care what happens. I know I'm just going to keep getting interviews. I'm just going to keep getting offers. At some point you hit that point, but it definitely takes a lot to get there.
Yeah, that's great. All right, guys. Well, I want to ask you, do you guys have a favorite part of the program? Was there something you learned that you really liked, or an aspect of our program that you really liked? And it could be something that, you took with you to your career, or just you enjoyed that kind of aspect of our program in general. Let's break it up. I want Matt or Celia to go first.
Like my favorite part of the program?
Yeah.
Is that sort of, I really like the mini projects, to be honest, and all the materials that are in the lecture. So there's so much material, and that the instructors don't really have a chance to cover all of it, but it's good material. And you get to keep them and it's great. And I think the mini projects really I think it's hard to describe what they are like to you all, but they're kind of like homework basically. But it's not like a huge project, but they're surrounding both like a technical theme, but also it's kind of like an actual use case, if that makes sense. Like for example, I think in one of the machine learning week, there's 2 weeks where we dealt specifically with natural language processing. So the whole use case the whole project is surrounding an actual use case. Like, you actually look at all, I think, I'm trying to remember, I think it was like Yelp reviews that we looked at. Like it was like a huge database of Yelp reviews, and we go through it with natural language processing tools and all that kind of stuff. And they're all like that. So another week you might deal with SQL or SQL, and it's another use case surrounding that. So I think that's really my favorite part, because really, at least for me, not until I start doing it, it's really hard to sort of, look at all the notes, and, the instructor does a good job, going through the lectures to really know what that really means, as a practitioner, like there's a lot of theories, and you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but what does that actually mean when you go do it? And I think the mini projects really does help. And I find that, because you can download all of the stuff and you can go over it again. When I was preparing for interviews, for example, and all that kind of stuff, I still go back and maybe redo some of them just for review. And I really think that's one of the best part of that.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you've gone back through the resources, but it sounds like you do.
I do. They're great. I mean, obviously you kind of lose the grading part. Like you can't connect back to the TDI server anymore, but you still have access to the actual. I think the data is still there. All of the stuff is still there. You just don't get graded anymore, but you can still go through the problems or the project themselves if you want to. And that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, awesome. Anybody else want to talk, Celia, about your favorite part?
Yeah, I would add on that. I totally agree, Matt, on the mini projects. I think for quite a long time, I still keep referring back to the mini projects when I was actually doing my real work, just because those code are that practical. It's really about real context. And also another thing, I think it's about the outline of the whole program. So I remember like the first week we're doing some of the Python, pandas, and then you have like machine learning things, etc. The point is, I feel it's not that easy to have a very good definition or structure of what are the skill sets needed to become a data scientist if you are just stepping into this domain. I think Data Incubator really lay out that outline. These are the things you need to learn about. And even though within a week, you probably only touch the surface of that particular topic, but that outline really gave me later on, if I want to know one of the topic, I know that's the area I need to dive in. And it also gave me the enough, the initial knowledge to get me started with. So I really appreciate that outline. And another thing is about the recruiting. So I actually graduated from the master program when I was at the job market. It's not that easy because I didn't have a network, right? So so I only can apply things on the website. And then now I know whenever I open a position, I'm looking at 300 resume. There's almost no way I got to pick up. But with the program, actually, at the time, it was Erica who helped me find a job. So she was so on top of things. We have a specific, like a very good group of a partner company already there waiting to review like 20 or 30 of resume at most, and then like schedule interview with us. So I got to expose to so many companies. Then I was just like applying as a master program graduate at the time. So I really appreciate that part too.
Awesome. Thanks for the shout out, Celia.
I guess I'll go third. So yeah, I guess my favorite aspect was probably either the first mini project, which hopefully stays the same as like the one relating to New York Social Diary, both because it was like an amusing subject matter, and because it was stupendously hard given that it was the first week. Although I won't spoil it for people. So I guess the second favorite thing I have is probably the other fellows that I met. So you really get to, I guess remotely, it's still like you have Zoom, you have Slack and stuff, but especially in person, it was great getting to know all the other people who might have, on one hand, been in the same boat as me, but on the other hand, all have like various different backgrounds, you know, levels of industry experience, like for me, ranging from 0 to some others who have like years and are trying to career switch. And getting to know the other people. I'm still friends with a number of fellows to this day.
I was going to say, do you keep in touch with anybody? You still
you remember Jared from my cohort? Yeah, we still hang out. He's now living in San Francisco as well, so.
That's great.
Hopefully you're in our alumni workspace too, so you guys can all connect there as well.
That's true. I do need to pop back there, the Slacker, whatnot.
Wilson, do you have anything to add, or we can go on to the next question?
Yeah, I can just add something pretty quick. I think most of the other panelists had covered what I had in mind, but I think specifically with the mini projects, I liked how it tackled some of the more unknown or not known, more less covered topics from schooling, like Spark and regular expressions. I find regular expressions to be extremely important to me. Especially with a lot of the work that I do. So it gives a lot of flexibility with data management. I was also going to add into the fact that the alumni or the people that I meet in the cohort allows me the opportunity to bounce multiple ideas, which I think is very important in a more business setting, because I think data science is most impactful when you have that opportunity to collaborate and discuss about different approaches that, you know, one might not necessarily be more right than the other. But I think that the data incubator really does foster that sort of environment, which really leads to a more rewarding experience and a more representative experience in the workforce. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But yeah, definitely the mini projects and the network for sure.
Yeah, we definitely, you know, most of you guys, except I think Matt, were in person. And because of COVID, we have been online for the last year. And we've tried to foster as much of a collaborative environment as we can virtually. I think we've done a really good job of that. But we are very excited for when we can come back in person and work with you guys in person.
All right, another question for the group is, how challenging did you find the fellowship program? And whoever would like to go first.
This is like #1 question all applicants want to know.
It's more challenging than my job was. I'll say that to some degree. A lot of it is just like, it's like 8 weeks is a blur, and you have to, a lot of it is like the mini projects. I mean, I think in terms of mini project difficulty, I said they aren't easy, but probably a longer answer would be that, like, I mean, it depends. It depends on what your prior knowledge is. It depends on what you're good at. Just some of it might just be pure luck. So like I, for instance, struggled with like weeks 1 and 6 or something. That's the Spark week, which the beloved Spark week was tough for me. But others struggled on different weeks that I like aced in like 10 minutes or something, and vice versa. So pretty much everyone will be challenged in some respect, and a lot of it is also just like time management. Like you have to balance the many projects against your capstone, against interviewing for other companies. If you're doing a company capstone, you have to like communicate with the guy who you're working with, and then just balance that with like, you know, getting enough sleep, which I, you know, was kind of low on my balance, but that's important, and just, you know, staying healthy, having a life, stuff like that.
Anybody else have thoughts on how challenging it was?
Yeah. Sorry, Wilson, you go first.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I was going to echo exactly what Kevin had stated. I also find that the mini projects were fairly challenging, but I think it's mainly challenging, not necessarily because of the content, although the content can be quite a huge steep, but primarily due to time management. I think that that's one of the big things that I did learn about the about doing the mini projects as well, is just being able to manage my time appropriately, knowing what sort of expectations do I have in order to, with the limited amount of time that I can sort of do in the project and the project and the mini projects and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of time management as well. But yeah, I would say it's definitely not for the faint of the heart. It's definitely, you should definitely have some adequate experience, but I wouldn't say that that's a must. I think that more experience definitely allows it to be easier to manage, but I wouldn't say that. I think everyone who was in my cohort equally struggled as much. So, you know, it's just only a slight advantage if you have like the right preparation from your academics, but it's very minimal really. So I would just say that overall it's very challenging.
Yeah, so I want to add on to that. Yes, absolutely. It is challenging, but in the end, I think one of the things I learned, the biggest learning I got from the data incubator is it's more about mentally challenging. So I feel a lot of time, I feel I don't know it, and then I just got freaked out. But actually, when I sit down, I just Google around. After 30 minutes, I just solved it. I didn't have much programming or statistics background when I entered. It was absolutely hard for me, but at the same time, I really appreciate my cohort support because you know, you always have someone who's one of us is really good at one of the topic, so everybody just go to that person, started learning. That's absolutely very much important, and I actually really appreciate that challenging 8 weeks. Just because it's challenging, it makes me and my cohort so much closer because we went through something amazing and challenging altogether. I think you totally can do it, but you probably need to devote full time.
I don't know how many of you are planning to do this full time, or if you're still like a grad student slash like a full-time job plus the fellowship. Like I can't imagine doing that. That's like a tall order. It's like a full-time job pretty much. Your schedule is pretty packed. There's a good amount of work that you have to do offline. I don't think, because I didn't have anything going on when I was doing the fellowship, so I was full time doing the fellowship. But it was not often that I'll stay up late. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks out of the 8, I will have to stay up. The first week, I think Kevin, you mentioned the first week. That one, it's just things takes a while to run for that one. So there's a lot of waiting, and the Spark week also too. So you have to factor stuff like that in. By the way, if you're planning on being a data scientist, you have to really think about that too. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that takes a while to run. So you have to really learn good time management for that. I think it's challenging, but in a good way in general, the program, like learning new things. If you like learning new things, then it's going to be a good challenge. There's a good amount of programming, coding, that just comes with the game. So if that aspect of data science is challenging to you, you might find it more difficult. I in general had a good challenging time. Like I don't think for TDI at any point I felt like, you know, the kind of despair that I had sometimes when I was in grad school. It was in general like a good challenging, you know, like a good kind of challenge.
Well, maybe, you know, it makes it a bit easier if you like what you're doing, right? It's still challenging, but if you're enjoying what you're doing. I don't think the panelists know, but we actually just kicked off a part-time program. So specifically for those students that are in academic programs or are maybe working, because that 8 weeks asks a lot if you're trying to juggle a lot of things. So we have a part-time program now that is a bit more spread out so they can have a life and do TDI with us, I think, as Kevin mentioned. We will ask like 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll jump in. I know some of the panelists have answered some of the questions in the Q&A. We'll answer some of those live so everybody can hear and see those. But guys, what piece of advice, you know, you've gone through the program, you have very successful data science careers now. What piece of advice would you give somebody, you know, sitting in your shoes back when you were applying to TDI or if just in general getting into data science? Anybody want to start off?
I suppose I can start this question off. I had to think a little bit about that question because there's plenty of advice I could give. So I guess advice in terms of applying to data science, I think, or sorry, to advice in applying to the data incubator, I would say that grit is definitely very important. If you try to not feel discouraged with basically how I know that data science is pretty much very prone to imposter syndrome and everything. I actually had dealt through that when I was in my cohort, but don't let that discourage you from pursuing your career in data science, because everybody is basically focused on their own path, and you should try to pave your own pathway while you are in your cohort, trying to knock out all the problems in the mini projects and doing your capstone project. I would say that definitely having high grit is very, very important for sure. Don't let the imposter syndrome discourage you, and try to learn as much as possible, because it is a great opportunity for you to really bulk up your skills for your next future opportunity. And then in general with data science, I think one of the biggest things that I see with a lot of new graduates compared to more of the more seasoned and veteran data scientists is their ability to unlock value of the data sets. I think that being able to know where the value statement lies with any data set that you're given, and how you can kind of convert that.
Great. Anybody else have any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I probably would say if you're thinking about applying it, I would just say do it. Because remember when I applied it, sorry, Wilson, did you have anything to add?
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that, it's very common that a lot of people have like the tendency to want to apply the most state of the art, but you have to try to unlock the value is basically the point I wanted to make. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. I was just like talking about when I was applying it. I actually missed the first deadline. I actually already get to the late submission. At the same time, I look it up. I found it's like 2% of admission rate, and I totally was like, there's no way I will be able to get into it. But then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give it a shot anyway, without any expectation I will be able to make it. But to be honest, I'm really glad I did it, because I really credit the data incubator 2 months as the start of my career. I really don't think I can start off from that level without the data incubator. So if you are not sure, if you're not confident, like you're wondering whether you will get a chance, I would say just do it. At least give it a shot. I really appreciate I did that back then. As for go back to where I started. Yeah, I think it's once you get started on it, because data incubator really have a great structure, plan it out for the next like few weeks, few months in your life. Just keep doing what you're supposed to do. And exactly, don't get freaked out by the things like you don't know for that mini project. Just focus on that one problem, specific problem, trying to solve that. And you will find like after probably 2 days, how far you've already got just by solving problems one by one. And by doing that, finish the program and starting off on your career, it just things come natural later. But I think it's a great first step, just starting applying.
Awesome. Sometimes the first step's the hardest, Kevin, you have some advice?
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo Celia. When it comes to applying to TDI, just do it. I kind of like I actually learned about TDI probably 2 years or 3 years before I went, and I kind of like dawdled around, was too nervous, had a lot of, I think as Wilson might have mentioned, imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't get in, like what do I know? But then it turns out, yeah, when you do it, it's a pretty life-changing program, put it that way. I think to echo what Celia said there. Once you're in, probably the 2 advices I'll give, get to know your fellows a bit better. I think I mentioned something like this earlier. So you have a community of people around you, and I think that's huge. I learned probably as much from the other fellows as from the program itself. Second thing is when interviewing, I guess I'll throw a third thing in, just like 80-20 rule in industry and TDI everywhere is huge. So if you're coming from an academic background, I've kind of internalized to the point where it's kind of tried hearing this phrase now, but yeah, if you haven't heard it, 80-20 rule is pretty huge. Last thing is kind of related. You aren't going to be an instant pro. The fellowship is 8 weeks. A lot of the industry skills that I've learned since I started working, it's stuff you really just have to kind of learn on the job. Even a lot of the technical skills I know today, I pretty much ended up learning on the job. But the good news is you don't have to be an instant pro either. You just have to show companies you're smart and you're a fast learner, which you already, to get into TDI, you already have to do that. So you already have that ability.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Matt, any words of advice before we go to the Q&A section?
Sure. I guess for me, it wasn't until I really started at my current position do I really know the type of work that I'll be doing. It's so hard to explain because I would talk to alums or even other folks who have been in the field, and they will tell me things that they do and describe projects they would do, but it never really feel something that's very concrete that I can picture in my head. This is my experience because I it's just not my background. My background is I work in a wet lab and all that kind of stuff. So it's just so far removed. But I guess my advice for those who feel maybe a little bit like the same way is to just continue immerse yourself in the sort of in the knowledge base. For me, I truly think it's a fascinating field. So I did sink in a lot of my free time, whatever that is, into really reading about it, working through books. I think a lot of people ask about, online classes like from Coursera, Udemy, like all that kind of stuff. Obviously, the value of those classes sometimes kind of scale with how much you commit to it and how much they cost. But they can't really hurt, I think. So for me, I think that really helped. And there is some, I've only been in my job for, less than 6 months, but I think there really is a point, maybe a month in, that I would finally realize, oh, that's what I'm going to be doing. And it's a good feeling. So if you don't feel that, that's great. You're already past that hurdle. But if you ever feel that, like this is something you want, but you can't really picture yourself what you're going to be doing day after day, just know that continuing immersing yourself in all the knowledge that you need to know, that you think you need to know, that other people tells you that you need to know, it's going to help, and it will pay off, and it will really help down the road, because sometimes you will learn things and learn tools that you don't really know how they would apply, but they often comes back. So that really did. That was really true for me, especially for the way TDI is structured, because each week you cover, one major theme. And sometimes I'm like, why am I doing, but then it always sort of just makes sense towards the end. So, if it's things don't make sense, or you can't really connect to sort of picture yourself in the future, just know you can do it. You can ride through it.
I think that's such a good point, Matt. I think a lot of people, especially with data science, it means a lot of different things for a lot of different companies. And so it is hard to kind of envision, if you have no experience, what that would look like. And even if you do, because every company varies, so I think that's really good advice to know that will come the more you immerse yourself in it. And just in general, when you get into a job, it might take you a second, but you'll figure it out, and you'll be like, hopefully feel a sense of peace and relief that like this was all worth it, and that you're enjoying what you're doing, Awesome. Well, thank you guys for answering those questions. Sia, are we going to go to the audience, if we will, and see?
Yeah, we've got quite a few open questions in there, some more geared towards us. The first one actually is asking you, Eric, if you can give a little bit more information about the part-time program.
Yeah, I'll do a quick little overview, but basically, as all of our panelists have mentioned, our full-time program is 8 weeks long, and that is like a full-time program that is fast-paced, as they all have mentioned. Our part-time program is 20 weeks long, and that is where we are meeting for 2 days a week, roughly 2.5 hours a day. So you're meeting about 5 hours a week. There is some expected time that you should be working outside of, live lectures and class time, if you will. I think we roughly are asking 15 hours a week of work for about 20 weeks. Same curriculum, just spread out amongst a longer amount of time. So you still work on mini projects, you still work on capstone projects. You will still have the same access to career services, like resume rewrites, hiring partners, networking events, all of that is the same. So just gives you more time and definitely spread out and more bite-sized pieces if you have other things going on in your life.
Another question here for the panelists are what tools do people need to know or master before applying to the Data Incubator?
I think I answered this a little bit, but unless it's changed, there's like this technical part, like a take home that you have to do. So if that part is, there's like a 3-part, like you have to come up with a capstone, there's a coding thing, and there's a data analytic thing. So if those things are like super tough, then so it should be challenging, I guess, but it shouldn't be something that you're like, pulling all your hair out. Maybe just a little bit. I think that's in my experience, I feel like that's a pretty good gauge of things to come.
Yeah, I actually Googled my whole way on that whole thing. Seriously, like Stack Overflow was, the source of all the answers I gave there. I absolutely didn't do great. I think I did average. So I think probably, like have some experience or something, but I really think it's really about if you have the determination, you want to become a data scientist, you will be surprised how fast you're going to start picking up things once, you get started.
Let's see, another question here says, any suggestions for an applicant with limited coding experience, but good math and stat background?
I feel like coding is a lot easier than math and stats, but that might be me. Like coding, there's like, especially with Python, Python's design, it's so fortuitous that Python is sort of the language of choice for most data scientists. It's designed to be easy to learn. It really is. So I have very little programming background before TDI. Like I did a good amount of self-studying, the year leading into it. But I didn't really take much, if any, college level classes in programming. You can pick it up, just, whatever helps, or whatever is the best way for you to learn. If you like watching video, there's like literally millions of good like YouTube tutorials and free classes on YouTube. If you like something really structured that you'd be graded on, there's great classes on Coursera and all the other ones. There's great books. I mean, literally, there's a whole subreddit about Learn Python, and there's like already a FAQ about best books that you can learn Python. Like the free resources are out there, and you can get on once you get a little bit comfortable. Get on LeetCode and HackerRank, and I don't know if TDI still do this, but back when I was in TDI, every morning you do a HackerRank.
Every morning.
Yeah, so those are really helpful. Those are helpful even after the fellowship for preparing for interviews. And there's just so many ways to, now it's kind of like the best time to learn coding too. So I really think if you're good at statistics, which I find very cryptic, then you're already like way ahead of a lot of folks. I think like the coding part, in my opinion, generally, it's not the toughest part of being a data scientist.
Any other thoughts on this, Kevin?
Pretty much Matt said it really well. Just like learn to code. At the end of the day, coding is like 80% of, probably 90% of the actual technical work I did at my job is some sort of coding. It's hard to get away from that. The only advice I'll tack on is if you do like to self-learn coding, one of the best tips I did when I was learning is from one resource where they basically said, you're not allowed to copy and paste anything. Every line of code, type it out like letter by letter. Now, when you're at work, you copy paste a ton. Like it's all copy paste pretty much. But when you're learning, I think it really does help if you force yourself to type every character out.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I'm seeing a couple of questions here, and I'm just going to kind of tackle them quickly. A lot of questions about our challenge. How hard is it? How do we evaluate it? And I think it's changed a bit from when you guys applied, but we've set it up in a way where it's like lots of questions. We don't expect you to answer all of them. And so we're not evaluating if you get through it. We're really evaluating, how the answers that you're giving. And so don't get upset if you don't get them all. We don't expect you to answer all of them, and just do your best. And then we take all of that into account, and we take not only just the coding challenge, but your resume that you're going to supply us with. If you go on to interview with us, we take that into account. So there's a lot of assets to your application outside of just the coding challenge. To Matt's point, if you are in the coding challenge, you're like, yikes, this is very hard. You may want to pull the Celia method and Google it and look, she got in as a fellow, so it clearly worked for her. Or you might think, maybe I want to go for the analyst program, which you guys panelists might not know this, but our summer cohort, which is the application is open now, we are doing a data analyst program. So you guys that is going to be a little bit, the technical requirements there are going to be a little bit less than the data science program. In fact, there is no coding challenge to start off in the data analyst program. So something to keep in mind, if you do go out for the data science program and you're feeling like, yikes, this is really tough, you can apply for that data analytics program, which is going to be a great stepping stone if you even want to go on to that data science program.
Is there still like the 20 days onboarding thing? Is that still a thing that you want?
Yeah, it's 12 days.
12 days, sorry. Whatever.
Yeah, we do.
It's all blur at this point.
12, 20,
Yeah, it's 20 for me.
Matt's referring, we give everybody that joins our program, it's called the 12-day program. And the idea is that you're supposed to start it before you join our cohort, so that everybody's on the same page. Many people actually say that it takes a little bit more than 12 days. You have access to it much earlier than 12 days, so you can start it when you want. But that's going to walk you through the basics of where you should be when we start day one.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize that. I don't think it's graded or quote unquote required or anything like that, but right. It's so helpful. It's a lot of stuff. It's like 12 days, 20 days is not even enough for everything, because like there's a whole book that they tell you to read. Which I think it's a book about algorithm, and it's actually a really good book, just completely free online. But it's a lot of stuff, and I tried my best to work through all of it, and I didn't work through as much as I would like to, but it was very helpful. And there were classmates of mine who didn't and wish they did. So I would really suggest that if you do go in, do get in the program, congrats. But if you have access to that onboarding 12 days thing, just start as soon as you can, because it's a lot of stuff and it's super valuable, and it's going to prepare you. I think someone asked about what's the best way to prepare for the fellowship. If you got in, then you're halfway there, and that 12 days onboarding will take you the rest of the way. It is really, I can't emphasize that.
You're preaching to the choir, Matt. I'm going to have you come in when we start a cohort to give that speech, because we do it and we still have some people that don't take advantage of it. But yeah, as somebody's asking, when does that start? When would they get access? You get access when you get accepted into the program. We'll email you guys all that, and you can start working on it once you're onboarded. A couple questions about, and I'll just answer them really quickly because we're right at time, about the Capstone project and interviewing. Basically, we don't expect you to have a capstone project completed when you interview for the program. Basically, we just want you to give us a preliminary. Here's the data you plan on working on. Maybe do a couple different analysis, like this is kind of the trends I'm seeing, this is where I'll be going. Typically, people share a GitHub or a PowerPoint presentation, and it's like, 5 slides. You really have 2 to 3 minutes to present. It is not supposed to cover a whole capstone project. We do not expect you to have that completed. You're going to be working on that throughout our program. This is just to say, hey, I've thought about this. I have a plan in place. And that's not to say that it can't change either. Again, we're just kind of wanting to see where your head's at when you're thinking about data and what kind of projects interest you. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I thought this was so awesome. I thought this was a really great conversation. It's wonderful to see many of you again and hear about all the awesome things you're doing now. Thank you so much for your time. Does anybody have any last minute things that they want to add in or anything? Great. I'll take that as a no. We covered it
I'm
all.
gonna put my LinkedIn on the chat.
Yeah.
So
I'm
if
sure people would love to
folks
connect
want
with you.
hit me up,
For those that attended, if there were questions, we didn't get to all of them, please feel free to email us. We're at admissions@thedataincubator.com. As I mentioned, our summer cohort application is currently open, and actually early enrollment closes this Friday. So if you're interested in early enrollment, that will close on Friday. Early enrollment, we were talking about this earlier. If you want to have access to our early enrollment package, which part of that is a Python lesson, that's how you get access to that. So make sure you apply by Friday if you would like access to that. Regular admissions will close on May 7th, and then the dates are there so you can see our full-time summer cohort is going to run from June 28th to August 20th. And then part-time program is going to run from June 28th to November 12th. Again, hit us up with any questions, whether it's about your application or our program. We'd be happy to answer them. And once again, panelists, thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome to have you. Sierra, thanks for co-hosting with me.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Great to see you guys. Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.